There are hundreds of coffee grinders on the market right now, and most of them share the same problem. They're built to fail right around the time you finally figure out how to use them. Cheap motors, plastic gears that strip, burrs you can't replace even if you wanted to. We're talking conical burrs, flat burrs, 40 millimeter, 64 millimeter. It doesn't matter how good the spec sheet looks if the thing is designed to die. So I did the boring part for you. I looked at what actually survives daily use for years, not months. What still grinds consistently after thousands of cups, and what you can actually repair instead of throwing in a landfill when one part gives out. Out of everything out there, 5 made the cut. 5 grinders that are still worth your money. And the one at the top of this list has no motor at all, which is exactly why it might outlast every electric grinder here combined. Let's count down. Quick rules, because best grinder doesn't mean anything by itself. I judged every one of these on 4 things. Does it grind consistently, shot after shot, cup after cup? Will it still be working in 5-10 years? When something wears out, and burrs always wear out eventually, can you actually replace it, or is the whole thing garbage the day that happens? And does the price match what's actually inside, or are you paying for a shiny shell? What's not on that list? How it looks on your counter. A grinder that photographs well and dies in 18 months isn't worth buying. It's worth avoiding. And for what it's worth, a grinder like the Baratza Encore sits just outside this list, not because it's bad, but because the ones that made it set a higher bar for long-term repairability. Quick thing before we get into the actual list, hit like and subscribe now, because if you're not, you're going to miss the next breakdown and probably end up buying the wrong thing without knowing it. Starting at number 5, the Breville Smart Grinder Pro. This is the one for people who want a serious daily driver without stepping into specialty-only territory. Stainless steel body, 60-stepped grind settings, 40mm stainless steel burrs, and most importantly, replaceable burrs when the originals finally wear down after years of daily use. It's not the prettiest grinder here, and it's not the most precise, but it's the one built to survive a busy kitchen that uses it every single morning without babying it. Owners who've had this thing running for 6-7 years without a single repair aren't rare. They're the norm, and that's exactly the kind of quiet reliability this list is looking for. Number 4, the Wilfa Svart Precision. Scandinavian design, mostly metal construction, and a grind consistency that punches above nearly everything else in its price range. What actually earns it a spot here is how it's built inside. Fewer plastic points of failure than competitors twice its price. And a company that's been making this exact grinder reliable for years without cutting corners to hit a lower number on a shelf tag. It's also one of the few in this price range where the manufacturer still sells replacement parts directly, instead of quietly discontinuing them the moment a newer model ships. Number 3, the fellow Ode, 2nd generation. This one made a choice. Most companies won't make, it does one thing, filter and pour over grinding, and does it extremely well instead of trying to be everything. The 64mm flat burrs inside are sized to match that job exactly, running at a lower RPM than most grinders in this class, which means less heat transferred into the coffee during the grind. That focus shows up in the rest of the build too, a mostly metal housing, a motor sized correctly for the job instead of overworked, and a company that's still supporting and improving this exact model years after launch instead of abandoning it for the next release. That kind of long-term support is rare enough in this category that it deserves to be judged as part of the durability, not separate from it. Number 2, the Niche Zero. This is the grinder specialty coffee people quietly obsess over. And for one reason that matters more than any other on this list, near zero grind retention. Almost nothing gets stuck inside between grinds, which means almost nothing wears unevenly or clogs over time. The 63mm conical burr and the bearing setup are built for exactly this, running at around 330 revolutions per minute, low enough that heat buildup during the grind is minimal, and designed for thousands and thousands of grinds without the performance drifting. It also runs stepless adjustment, which means you're not clicking between fixed positions. You're dialing to exactly where you want to be. It costs more than everything else here. It also might be the last grinder some people ever buy, and once you factor in a decade or more of daily use, that price starts looking less like a splurge and more like the cheapest grinder you'll ever own per year. And at number 1, espresso's manual grinders, specifically models like the JX Pro, the K Ultra, and the J Max. No motor means no motor to fail, which sounds simple until you realize that's the single most common reason electric grinders die. The stepped external adjustment you can feel click into place by hand moves in increments as fine as 8 to 15 microns per click, depending on the model, which is tighter than a lot of electric grinders manage with a full dial. Burr quality that genuinely competes with grinders 3 times the price, and a mechanism so simple there's almost nothing left inside it to eventually break. It takes a few extra seconds each morning. In exchange, you get a grinder that has a real shot at outliving every appliance in your kitchen, including quite possibly the coffee machine you're using it with. So which one should you actually buy? If you want the least friction and the widest daily use durability, start with the Breville or the Wilfa. If you already care about pour-over specifically, the fellow Ode earns its price. If money genuinely isn't the deciding factor and you want the best your kitchen can hold, the niche Zero is worth it. And if you want the single most future-proof option on this entire list, go manual with espresso. Here's the pattern across everyone that made this list. None of them are the cheapest option in their category, and none of them are the flashiest. They're the ones built by companies that assumed you'd still be using this thing in 5 years, and designed for that instead of designing for a great unboxing video. The cheap grinders on store shelves aren't cheap because they're a bargain. They're cheap because something inside them was built to be replaced, not repaired. That's the 5. If you own one of these, let me know in the comments how many years you've had it running. And if you're still using something that didn't make this list, I want to hear about that too.